What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jaci Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandRUSSO.com.
Welcome to He Said, She Said podcast. Michael, our guest today, Michelle Herl with SOR. You know, it is so rare to find a marketer who's been in the same company for 26 years. It is rare to find a company that allows, if not encourages, a marketer to earn their place at the table, to have a seat, to really make sure their marketing is prioritized. And it is almost unheard of for a company to invest in marketing and grow the way that SOR has. And I credit Michelle. I know there's a lot of other talented, capable people at the company, but Michelle has done so much to put them on the map with the marketing work that she does. And I love the way she talks about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just talking about, like their website, for example, again, it's not a very sexy website. It's not flashy or designy, but you can tell there was so much thought put into it from the end user perspective, how to navigate it, how to find what you need quickly in a very complicated space. And that alone, we talked about getting the house in order and making sure that everything's right before you start to go bang the gong and shout out to the world about how great you are. But you have to make sure that the experience is good once they get there. And I think they've done a good job with that.
Right. No, absolutely. So y'all stick around and listen to Michelle's pearls of wisdom.
Pearls of wisdom.
When the day is through.
Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you making the time, and I'm excited about our conversation today. Michael, I think every once in a while starts to feel like we have the same industries over and over again, and you bring a breath of fresh air to the lineup. So we're very excited.
Okay, that's going to be interesting, but okay. Yeah, there's probably not always a ton of marketers in manufacturing, although you see it more so now.
We definitely do. And for us, that's kind of where we base our business, is in that manufacturing industrial kind of sector. And but then every once in a while I bring in bank people because it's business to business, and then occasionally we get stuck in some professional service ruts where we get a bunch of law firms in a row or accounting firms. So it's nice to get back to our manufacturing roots.
Well, what's kind of interesting too is like even when I started here 26 years ago, and I can't even believe I've been here that long, I came with $0 for a budget.
Ooh.
Then the first day of work, I didn't even have an office. And all I had was at that time was my Franklin daily planner.
Mm-hmm.
And
a Rolodex. Did you have an actually rolling Rolodex?
And I just showing my age here. And I mean, it was really kind of challenging because first I thought, okay, this is a marketing job. But yet they didn't have anybody that had done marketing here. But luckily the founder in his early years had been a marketer. So there suddenly seemed to be a desire or a want to bring somebody into the building that had some marketing genes. And so, but I didn't have an office. They kind of weren't ready for me. And so back in those days, it was, their website was about 8 pages. And I don't know if you guys can remember, but at the time, there was a time when you didn't necessarily publish your catalog or your specifications because, that would be letting somebody know what it is you do. Well, that was even just, I had to kind of educate people that knowledge is power, and we can become the experts by showing and sharing our catalogs and our information. So that's in kind of where I started. A lot of the, they had there's 3,000 different products or kind of configurations here. So you can imagine how complex that is. And a lot of the catalogs that they did have were hanging from wires with a strip of film. And they were stripping in the changes even to the catalogs. And so I had to get those first. The job became just getting those catalogs recreated with branding, with the right disclaimers and kind of safety information. And so the job really became more of a production-oriented job. And I hired a bunch of graphic people and just people who did desktop publishing to get us just to ground zero,
Right.
just to start. And so that's where I started.
Wow.
Just started there. And so it really wasn't a marketing job that I thought I was taking. It was really getting kind of the foundation in place. And that was 26 years ago. And I had an office, and we're in a big manufacturing space here in Kansas. I was on the whole other end of the building, closer to the production floor. Now I'm on the other whole end of the building, but I was right next to the factory. And so that was also
I think, what's funny is that we still do that today. A lot of times we go in, and before we do any marketing, we have to get the house in order. And usually it's a mess. It's getting the website back, it's getting the messaging right, getting the structure back in place, getting a system that really kind of resonates with from top down, inside and out. Before we can ever tell the world, we have to get the shop right, and that is generally the case for most manufacturing and professional services. They don't focus on that. And they're usually throwing things out there quickly. And then it's like, okay, wait, before we do anything, we have to start at square one, right? And once we get that right, then we can move forward.
Well, and what even happened too is when I presented this at the time, that we need to get all this literature in place, we need to get these contractors hired, I had to put together a plan and a budget. And the person at the time I was reporting to, and also the CFO, they were not happy because see, we've been doing business a certain way. And I said, well, okay, but if we're really going to continue to grow and certainly share the products and the information we have, we need to make that available to everyone. So I had to present, okay, I had to find the contractors, how much they were going to cost per hour. I estimated per page what it was going to take, how many minutes per page, and how long this project would last. And then with a promise of when it was going to be done. And then we could start really looking at doing marketing. But we had to get, like you said, Michael, we had to get the house in order. And so that's where it started. And, in fact, I'm just blabbing along here, but I had called my sister, who is a mentor to me. She's 12 years older. And I said, I don't know. I've taken this job and I feel like I've taken a step backward. And she said, well, this is actually the perfect job because you can only go up from here. And it like totally turned my thinking around.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, don't be intimidated, be inspired.
Right.
Be inspired by this. Okay, so really there's full autonomy here and you can do and make it what you want.
Right.
That really kind of changed my mindset at that point about 26 years ago. And now it's a position that has a seat at the table. There's 6 of us on leadership. And I started as a marketing manager, but then it was perceived that the role was important. And so then
That's
I
always
on the leadership team.
Yeah, Jackie talks about that all the time. It's so important that the C-suite understands the value of marketing, and it sounds like they do there. And because if not, then you're just spinning wheels, right? But the fact that you have elevated into where you're at now, you're able to actually participate with the sales and the this and the that, and you're in the know, you're in the room where it happens, And if not, you're just kind of, if you're down the hall just doing whatever they give you, then you can't really play a part in it. You can't do your job right.
Yeah, you definitely have to make sure that you're part of the strategy and you don't become a part of what I call the one-pager club.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this even to my marketing team. We don't want to be the one-pager club.
No.
We want to be, sitting at the table and be part of the strategic decisions that are made as far as what we are focusing on and what we are trying to do to drive sales. And so certainly a lot of times the salespeople are going to come, suddenly they're getting pressure and they need to be pushing something. Well, they don't know exactly what to say. And it might be just this one-off thing that they're trying to do. Oh, let's call up marketing and let's create this pager. And you have to just go, okay, wait, I don't want to say no, because you don't want to become the department of no.
Right.
Nobody wants to work with the department of no, but you do have to be good at slowing things down and thinking strategically about what we're doing. And so what I'll have us do, and even this is a one pager, it's really just a positioning statement to say, okay, what is it? What is the purpose? What are we trying to do? Who's the target customer? What does that ideal customer look like? What is the industry that we're trying to get into? Because sometimes it's a different industry. Right now, we're mainly oil and gas and power, petrochemical and nuclear power. But if there is something different we're trying to do, well, then we need to even kind of know what that is. Or maybe we even say no to it because it doesn't fit the strategic industries that we're going after.
Right.
But if you don't get all that down on paper first, I could even have somebody on my team running around and doing all this, and then it's created and it goes into a file somewhere and everybody forgets about it. And it's not socialized among all the other salespeople. And it just becomes a waste of time and everybody's time. And so I just try to at least not say no, but slow it down. And then sometimes what we've even found is like, oh my gosh, we've created some marketing assets that we already have that maybe were from 6 years ago because I've been around for a while. Like, oh, well, we can draw from that or leverage off of that and do something with that.
Yeah.
And so, those are the kind of things you have to be careful in a manufacturing environment as a marketer, because you have the opportunity, or you're perceived as you can do everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Well,
want
let's
to talk
back
a little
up
bit.
there. Before you, I'm sorry, Jackie, I just want to
You
know,
good?
tell me a little bit about SOR, because we kind of jumped over that. Tell me what you guys are, what you do, and then we can back up and Jackie could take over.
No, you're good.
Well, so kind of from a high level, so the process industry in general that serves like power and oil and gas and food and beverage and pulp and paper is a $16 billion industry. Okay. We manufacture instruments, process instruments, specifically for oil and gas, power, and nuclear. What these are, very simply, and I like to keep things simple because I'm not an engineer, is that I like to say sometimes we're last in the food chain to protect something blowing up. So our devices will measure a level on a tank. You don't want that tank to dry up because the motors can burn out. On an oil and gas pipeline, you want the product to be moving through that pipeline because that's how people get paid. Also, if product isn't moving, something's broken. Well, our products will detect the pressure, the level, and the flow. And so that's really, and it really ends up, I will say this too, it protects, our instruments protect people. It's really kind of that last line of defense from things
Absolutely.
that by spills or something blowing up. And I just have to put this plug in. Sometimes the industry gets a bad rap, oil and gas, and just I would like to say a lot of the providers to that industry really are trying to protect the environment. Really, that is the goal. And that is what our products do, is it keeps people safe and it keeps things from spilling over, things from blowing up. It's the last line of defense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're in South Louisiana, and I'm not particularly in the oil field, but my family is. We grew up in the oil industry, and people go out on rigs, they're out on the jobs, and those those safeguards are so important. I mean, like if you know people that are on these rigs and on these things, it doesn't take much, and I don't think people realize how much goes into drilling and how much goes into that process and how dangerous it is. And so you have to have these things in place. And so, yeah, you guys do some heavy lifting, obviously.
We do. And we're a little more, I would just say, niche-y, just because we are a mid-sized manufacturer. There's a lot of big boys. Like I said, this is a $16 billion industry. But where we play is we do a little bit more of that engineered order. So for some of those more harsher or tougher applications, we're willing and flexible and able and capable to to take that very standard product and engineer it to a tougher application. And so that's why we, have stayed kind of the way we are and where we are. And we've actually desired to be kind of in this mid-size, as a mid-size manufacturer. People sometimes strategically or leadership will decide, let's stay kind of in this space so we can continue to be that kind of niche provider.
Well, I think staying mid-size when it comes to branding can be very helpful because it gives you flexibility that you don't have when you are committed to growth at all costs or unable to scale. You're taking away those opportunities where in the mid, you've got up and down flexibility that the others don't have.
Yeah, I think that we have that and we're able to just pivot more quickly.
Sure.
Sometimes then, if we're seeing that, oh, hey, well, why is this part of the business? We need to take a look at this and what do we need to do and kind of dust things off and start to dig in and figure out, well, why isn't this product performing the way it is, or it was traditionally doing this and what's happening? But we can move pretty quickly just because of our size.
Right.
So
I love that.
Yeah, and with a clear understanding of who you are and what you do and what you provide, I think that's something a lot of people don't have when they're chasing after something that let's do this or let's do this, and they're actually pivoting too much. They're letting the world dictate what they do versus this is what we do well, and there's a need for this, and let's go meet that need and let's do it the right way. And I think that's you've been around for 80 years. That doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
It doesn't. I think one of the things we've done too, which is I mentioned kind of our differentiator is taking on these really tough applications. One example I would give is we've even made some of our product managers almost a brand. And one example I would give is sampling systems. We have that factory down in Houston. It's a brand. We started in 2016. It's 10 years old, actually. This year, that particular brand. But what it is, it's basically a sampling system is where you will go in and you take a sample of the product to make sure, and it's closed, right? So you're keeping something that's dangerous from spilling out into the environment. So it's a closed loop sample. And what we do is we sometimes take on some samples that are not so great. So HF acid, for example, is in the olden days, you probably would send in your least favorite person to do the sample and watch their skin melt off. Well,
Awful.
That's awful.
Like a canary in the coal mine, but with humans.
But HF acid is very difficult to sample. Well, we have the expert in sampling in the whole world. We have it. His name is Billy Terry. And so because it's very nichey and we have this guy, we've built kind of him as part of the brand of sensor sampling. And so anytime there's a need for HF acid sampling, we are the guys to go to because we've really focused and honed in on something that we're very good at. And it's a very difficult application, certainly, to sample. And so sometimes it's not only necessarily the brand, but it's also the person behind the brand. And he just so happens to have this great personality that, where we put him on camera and we have him talk about it. And he's interesting and he's funny also, and he's approachable and likable. So that's how we try to differentiate ourselves with some of the kind of more harsher or tougher applications. That's how we're different.
Right.
Some of the big
I love
boys
that.
we're up against.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about getting your house in order and stuff, and I was just looking through your website, and it's very well done, by the way. It's a great example of, it's not a sexy site by any means. It's not dazzling by any means. But as far as organization goes and how you find information, it is very well put together. I actually love it because, I mean, if I'm looking here for the first time or I know exactly where to go. I know where I'm looking for. My eyes go right to the things that I need. And I love how you did your story. It's not just a story. When you break it down, you break it down. It's a drop down into history, sales team, frequently asked questions, culture and values. I mean, but it's now I get to choose. I'm driving that journey and I can go, oh, I'm interested in this. I can go right to video and demos. I can go to insights. I can do all these things, but it's very, very well. And then you have a high level nav on top of all that where I can go straight to interesting applications, insight updates, find a rep. But it's all right there on the dashboard. So it's really a great example of a dashboard website where I have an entry level and I can go straight where I want to go. I don't have to go through 15 pages of scrolling. I don't have to go through stuff that you want me to hear. I can go have my own journey. And I think it's anyway, very well done though.
Well, thank you. Now, part of the challenge too, I did bring a digital marketer in, and that was, I had to make that sell here to leadership. I brought her in a year and a half ago. The site I did before with a couple other people on my team, and I just know enough to be dangerous. I focus more on the content and the organization, but she has been good in really helping us kind of understand just the keywords, what people are looking at, and then certainly making me aware of all the customers or those individuals that are searching for us in the large language models, utilizing AI to find us. And so that's one of the strategies right now we're trying to attack, in that we're trying to make sure that we're relevant in Chat GPT, Perplexity, all, because that's really where we're starting to see a lot of the customers looking for us. And so there's just been some things we're trying to do to the site. One example would be a lot of our application stories. They were in a PDF format, and we're turning those into HTML because there's a lot of good keywords in there, and certainly AI will like that and pull from that. And so little by little, we're a small team, right? And I do utilize vendors. I guess I do utilize some agencies for things, but we do a lot of it ourselves. So we're just going after that and addressing that little by little by little. But thanks.
Yeah, no, and I love that. Going back to one of the questions Michael asked, I kind of wanted to take it in a little bit of a different direction, talking about the company and the growth that you've had and kind of your origin story. I want to get back to the name because I am fascinated by how names get condensed, and then sometimes it goes to just letters. Sometimes we add the period, sometimes we don't, and then people are confused. Am I supposed to pronounce the letters, or like IBM, or is it now a new word? And so was there rationale? What was it? Was there a strategic process they all went through, or did it just kind of evolve over time?
Well, there has been a strategic process. The company did start out as McNee Arts first because the founder, and I'll just kind of go through this quickly, he really got his first big break making flight trays for TWA Airlines.
Huh.
That wasn't really sustainable. It's called McNee Arts. He did a lot of industrial engraving, and just he was a machinist. But that wasn't necessarily something that could be sustainable over time. And so he was looking for a product that, once you put it in, it might need to be replaced. Now, think about that. That's very visionary in its own way. So he actually was sitting at a cafeteria one day and heard an oil and gas worker complaining about how the pressure switch that they were using kept wearing out. And so he decided, he took some notes on a napkin, and he got with University of Kansas professor Ben Brown, and they invented what was called the static O-ring pressure switch. Static O-ring, which later became SOR.
Ah.
So the static, it's that, it just, the product didn't have as much friction and kind of wear and tear. It was static, the O-ring. So what made that successful is that the product lasted longer. It didn't have this constant friction on the O-ring. So it was a static O-ring. So he started with that, and it happened to be that he would drive all over the United States in a station wagon. And he went to the Gulf Coast and gave out a bunch of these pressure switches to the Gulf Coast to an offshore platform. And what happened? There was a huge hurricane, I believe, that came through in the 60s. Well, it wiped out all the instrumentation except for the static O-ring pressure switches. So then the business blew up. Okay, things really start taking off. Now he decided, I don't just want to be a pressure switch company. I want to get into level, measuring level rather than just pressure. And so he acquired a company out of Houston called MSW. And here, and I'm not here yet. This is in the 60s, I believe, or even 60s, 70s. And I'm probably getting this off because, I'm born in 1965, right? Okay, so now everybody knows my age. But anyway, he decides to shorten the name to SOR so he can start taking in different product categories. Because it's not just a static O-ring pressure switch now. He shortens it to SOR. And it looked like, almost like the SOR looked like a cattle brand, SOR. It looked like a stamp.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came here in 2002, after I dressed all the catalog, I thought, okay, let's do a refresh of this logo. We're now worldwide. We've got all these sales partners all over the world. And I don't know if you remember when Nike had the swoosh. Nike was doing the big swoosh. Well, I decided, and I did go to an agency, we came up with SOR, and the O was a globe, and it had like this Jefferson swoosh on the O. So we updated it from a very looking cattle brand, a stamp, SOR, to this SOR with the world to represent the world. And that was a story I told and had all these reps come in from all over the world, and we're worldwide. We're now Mr. Worldwide. And so then what happened with that is, okay, that swoosh started looking a little Jetson-y. And I just thought, we got a new president in 2012. His name was Mike Waters. And he kind of wanted to make things his own. And so he also wanted to start doing acquisitions. Okay, so we have this long at that time, it's probably about 70 years long, a strong foundation, but he wanted to start doing some acquisitions and he wanted to update the logo. And so what we did is then we took out the world. It was just SOR. And then that lettering, kind of that design, some of the other companies we acquired out of Houston, SSI, started with an S, so the S could look like the S in SOR. And then sensor sampling starts with an S. Everything has to begin with an S. But that looks good because then it looks kind of cohesive and
part of a family, yeah.
And what we did is it was SOR measurement and control here, this part of the business in Kansas. And we elevated it to SOR controls group with 3 brands under it being SOR measurement and control, what we do here in Kansas, the measurement products, and then sensor, which is the sampling product, that's in Houston. And then we acquired a temperature business in 2016. So we have now pressure, temperature, level. We have all these different measurement variables. And that is SSI. And we changed the branding to kind of match and look like it all, went together.
Nice.
I did debate the president about it being SOR controls group, and then also this being SOR measurement control because it's SOR. But sometimes you have to just give up. I couldn't. I was like, okay. I mean, he's the president, and I have, worked as hard as
your
I
battles.
could.
Yeah.
Best.
Pick your battles.
The other thing about Mike, he really, because I wanted to, this is all strategy discussion, guys, but I wanted to, at the time, roll sensor and SSI just under the SOR brand. Let's just make them part of that. Mike was no, I want a very distinct, that this is its own, it's part of SOR, but it's a sensor sampling, and these are SSI. So I had to look, like, okay. Well, Procter and Gamble. And I had to try to kind of communicate this and socialize this to leadership because people were even getting confused. And I'm like, okay, well, look at Procter and Gamble. Look what they do. They've got Huggies, they've got Swiffer, they've got all these other things under the P&G brand. Well, we're SOR Controls Group, and we just happen to have these different brands under SOR Controls Group. So that was, and now our customers and they get it, but it took some time because even the SSI, it was this really kind of old looking, yucky logo. Great company, but just,
and that comes in the discussion of, is it a house of brands or a branded house, and your example is perfect. And that's, a lot of times we walk into a company like your size and they're on the grow and they're acquiring companies and they've done it without thinking about it. And all of a sudden they look around, they're like, what do? We have all this mess, like nobody understands it. There's no communication, there's no connection. And sometimes it's just a visual fix. Sometimes it's a brand architecture fix, but it's a discussion that I'm glad, you guys obviously did it early on enough to where now you're prepared for whatever comes next, and the house is settled. Like I said, part of getting the house in order. I love that analogy because it just works. And so many times people don't do that, and they're afraid to pull the Band-Aid off or make any big changes. Let's not rock the boat. Let's just keep it the way it is. And you end up in more trouble than you're worth at the end of the day. And you have to go back and start to say, look, the market's telling us it's not working. Our audience is telling us that they don't understand. They don't connect the dots. We're losing equity. We're losing promise, and all that stuff needs to be addressed.
One thing I did too, because the salespeople were even like, well, they even kind of said, well, why can't the SSI temperature sensors just be an SOR? Because SOR is really a strong brand. And I had to really work at communicating the brand structure to all our sales partners. We have about 110 manufacturer reps around the world. So I would do webinars, just even explaining that, and in-person training events, explaining the branding and why we're doing it the way we're doing it. And now, they understand it. But one thing I did, I said, hey, just think of SSI. It's almost like a model name. It's really just kind of also like it's an SSI. It's an SSI temperature sensor and sensor sampling. And, it's sensors. So, they started getting that over time, but it did take education and educating even my peers on the leadership team on kind of what we were doing. And the president at the time, he wanted it a certain way, but I had to put a story to it also back to him so that he'd have the story right. It took some time, and you can imagine changing. So here we acquired this company, SSI, this company out of Houston that had been around a while. And there are people there who knew the old, I'm going to call it ugly logo. but oh my gosh, you would have thought, I was the evil woman of the day to try to update it and integrate it and make it look cohesive with all of our branding.
Tell them, Jackie, what does nobody like to hear? That their baby's ugly.
Nobody wants to hear their baby's ugly.
Oh,
but so many babies are so ugly.
And it's not like I would ask our reps even just, hey, is this going to hurt sales if we change this from this to this? And they're like, well, we really don't even really know SSI that well. It's good that SOR's got it, but yeah, if you update it, good, go for it. So, I mean, it wasn't, it was okay to do that.
Right.
To make that change. And then now they've all accepted it and are proud. In fact, when I went down to Houston, a lot of the factory has the new SSI, temperature sensor hats on, and they wear them. And then the guy who runs the plant there has gotten, people wearing shirts that say, those people that are working on temperature sensors, they are proudly wearing the shirts. And so it's evolved and it's taken time, but it's been good.
That's awesome. I love that. And so, how often do you go around correcting people when they call you sore, or do y'all just accept it?
I at one point I had this is what I had toyed with, like even putting a phonetic thing to
Right?
it. And and then I decided not to. And I just emphasized, at least with our sales team, or I just gently correct when we are doing any training just to make sure we just, that they're saying it correctly. And certainly all our partners we just did a training yesterday where we had 135 of our partners online. They know our messaging and what to say. And so I think that's the most important thing. I decided not to do that. I don't know. I just thought it might be hokey.
Right.
And so, but do we get called that? Yes. And, I just go,
I mean, you just learn to accept it, right? You just live with it.
and use some humor. I mean,
Right.
just go ahead and laugh and
Yeah.
we understand. You can see why they say that. Or I'll joke, well, there's no E on the end, or just
Right.
but it does happen.
Yeah, just it is what it is, And so you mentioned earlier about the one pager club and kind of pushing back on those random requests without strategy. So how have you gotten your strategic process down so that you're able to work ahead, plan ahead, measure what works, and kind of limit those one-off requests of people who they're not really asking for something that they necessarily need or could use? It's just a safety blanket.
Well, to maybe even take it a step back, one thing we did in 2012 as an organization leadership is we put together just a very, what we call lean. You probably heard of lean manufacturing, which is continuous elimination of waste. And what we'll do is kind of starts at the very top. We do a strategy session for 2 days where we do a SWOT analysis. We bring in market research. My group does some of that, the product managers, and we talk strategy and where are the growth opportunities and what is it that we need to do that's really going to move the needle. And it's typically a 3-year plan. And I'm going to use some acronyms here. We do we come up with two, 3 is too much, but 2 what we call annual improvement priorities, AIPs. And these are big, high-level projects where we need to grow that business, at least exponentially. And there is a leader and a co-leader, and then there's many different sub-projects that are associated with that. Right now, one of the ones we're doing is we're really trying to grow our temperature business. And then the other is also the sampling business. So those are top level objectives. Marketing then will end up having projects related to the marketing side or trying to grow that part of the business. So for instance, sampling, we're trying to grow it by growing the spares market. Probably familiar with printers. You don't sell as many printers as you do ink cartridges, right? That's where the opportunity is.
Right.
Well, systems, it's in the bottles, it's the needles, all that spares market. So we put a strategy, it's a sub-project around this high-level project of really trying to grow the sensor business. So we have annual improvement priorities. Those are the directives across the whole company. With my team, then, what we do is we get together and the priorities are established, and then we come up with even more of the nits and the gnats of what those projects are under that project. And we report on those monthly. That keeps us from going awry and suddenly going off somewhere and doing, a promotion maybe on a flow product that we really don't sell a lot of, and we're not flow experts, but hey, it could happen, right? We could go off and the one pager club would come in and suddenly we're doing something on flow. But our objective is to grow sampling business in Houston.
Right.
So it really keeps us focused. The other thing we do with these annual improvement priorities, there's 2. And the team, we're all wrapped around that. My group, we meet on that. and we report on it monthly in leadership. Then what we have, it's called Functional Key Initiatives, FKIs. Some years we've had about 15 of these. These are smaller projects than the AIPs, might involve, 3 functional areas like marketing, engineering, and sales. These are smaller in nature, but yet they're very focused, and those get reported on monthly. It can be any number of things. For instance, trying to grow our pressure transmitter market. We've been traditionally a mechanical company. We're trying to expand out and let the world know we also do electronics. And so that'll become more of a focused initiative. Well, my team knows that that is what it is we're doing, and we'll report on that. I do to leadership monthly, even though our activities are happening in here. So that's kind of from a high level. I can use that also many times to say, well, hey, wait, you're wanting to introduce this one pager thing, but remember, salesperson, I mean, I think you have the X on the forehead right now, and I know you're on the team to grow the temperature business. So what we got to stay focused on that.
Right.
And then I'll even revert back and go, hey, you have some actions too I'm waiting on from you. And I mean, we just need to continue to stay focused. The nuclear business also is one that now with all of AI, all these data centers that are being built, and just the need for more power, even here in the United States, nuclear power is having a resurgence. Well, we're one of the very few manufacturers that even supply to the nuclear power industry, because everybody got out of it. Everybody got out because everybody was scared. Well, it's expensive to maintain a quality system for nuclear power. You can imagine, I mean, paperwork for one pressure switch is like a stack of paper. It's just so much documentation, but we've got so much of the process in place. So with this resurgence, that was an example again of, hey, what can we do to kind of grow that business? It keeps people focused. We maybe want to go over here and do something with food and beverage. No. We got to stay over here. So that has helped. And we introduced all of that in 2012. And so it's really, the other thing we did with that, and I just keep blabbing along, but we made the way we report our actions all the same. We have what's called a rolling action item list. And, it's in progress. It's blue is in progress, green, it's done, red, it's super hot, yellow, we've decided to park it. And so everybody works from the same system. You have to have an agenda before your meetings. You have to have meeting notes afterward. And everybody, we train the entire company, anybody who works on projects, on this system. So we're all talking the same language. And that seems to also keep people on check, in check and in place, because we all know how things work. And I think that was a pivotal moment when we did that in 2012 that helped.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I can see how that happened. And that kind of circles back around to tie into what you and Michael were talking about earlier with your House of Brands branded house, because all of those pieces fit together when you can work ahead and be strategic and not let the one pager club, which I am now going to use over and over again, those, one sheeters, take focus, because then all of a sudden there's activity and there's busy work, but it's not productive and it's not driving forward. And so those are the things we have to avoid.
We really have to. I mean, as marketers, we really have to. It's easy to fall in the trap. And I think sometimes, and maybe this is just my own thought, marketers kind of.
It's not. Let me assure you, Michelle, it is not your own thought. We have these conversations with people every week. And I think, would be shocked to know how many people tell us the same things, the same frustrations. You're the one bright shining star, because you're the one person that's managed to break through the manufacturing bias against marketing. You earned a seat at the table. You got budget. You've been in one place for 26 years.
It's crazy. I mean, it really, really is. It's, I think the other thing too, you talked about this at one point. I hear a lot of marketers. I was at this B2B marketing conference this past November, and there was one session on how to be friends with the CFO, how marketing can be friends. And I went in there, and I mean, it was good. It was all these spreadsheets and data and statistics to prove your worth. And I think literally my eyes started rolling backward. I was glazed over. I'm not that guy. I think I take a different tact with finance and accounting. What I've tried to do is show that I'm looking, at expenses. For example, I had a website vendor. They were doing maintenance on our website. Small team, our IT department doesn't handle that either. We don't have anybody, but the contract there was a lot of stuff we have to update with our reps, just lots of changes to the website. It was $20,000 a year. And I thought, and we're not getting the service and support. And I was getting frustrated. I could tell my team was. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to start shopping this. And I did. And I let the CF know, okay, this is what's going on, and I think he did say, God, $20,000. So I was like, ooh, take that note.
Right.
His eyes on this. Uh-oh. And so I ended up finding a vendor that does it for $6,000 a year. So it's $13,000 in savings. And so suddenly now, Daniel, that's his name, he's a new person, by the way. He's got trust in me. There was another thing where this was just recently. So all of a sudden, we do a lot of business in China. And I get all roped into a lot of this. Well, all of a sudden, the Beijing Municipal Administration in China says, hey, we're questioning if you really were in business starting in 1946. And because we're questioning, we have questions, we're going to hold all your products up in customs. Now, can you imagine?
Sounds fun.
18% of our business.
Like a party.
Is China. And so red alert, right? We're all in alert. This is a huge deal for us. Mm-hmm. And so what I ended up doing, and this leads back to the CFO here, but I had to get on this and prove to the Chinese that we had been in business since 1946. So one of the other people on the leadership team, his name is Bertie, said, Michelle, we need to engage our law office. I'm like, okay. So I engaged the law office, got these international attorneys involved, and we had a couple emails, right? Just exchange, nothing of real value going on here. But now they're aware, right? So what can you do to help us prove we've been in business since 1946? Well, this other woman and I in the building, she does contracts. I started documenting and finding a building kind of like license and stuff and documented all of this. And then she notarized it and sent it over. Well, anyway, we did all this work. We did it. That's the only thing I was working on. The Chinese accepted this. They accepted that, yes, you have been in business since 1946. And now your products can be moved out of customs. Okay. And now we'll get, our money for our stuff. Right. Well, anyway, the law office sends over this bill. It's like $7,000 for 2 emails. Like looks like you're in a tough spot. We're ready to help you. Well, I said no. And I said, I'll give you $1,000 for that. And our CFO is copied in on this. And so they said, okay. And so that's how you win. $7,000 bill. I didn't accept that because they really didn't do the work, and they really didn't. And they actually acknowledged it and said, yeah, okay, it really was a couple of emails. But if you don't question things, and I think then Daniel was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I trust her. I trust that she's just not signing off on things. And I think that is in many ways how a marketer can also win over the CFO, because they just think we're spending money.
Right. Just a waste.
Just spend money.
Just an expense.
Yes.
Yep. No, it's the bane of every marketer's existence. For sure. Hey, listen, Michelle, this was awesome. You were great. Thank you for your time and your knowledge and being so willing to share. We really appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you. I enjoyed it. Both were really fun. Keep things moving for sure. So thank you.
That's the goal.
When the day is through.